Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Long Form Conversations, the podcast where we talk about long form improv. Today, my guest is a very talented improviser, coach, teacher, and writer, but not right now because we're striking. Please say hello to Anna Bezahler.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Thanks so much for coming by my neck of the woods.
Yeah, of course.
What part of LA are you in?
Silver Lake.
Oh, okay, cool. So
Yeah.
not too far.
No, not at all. It's like 15 minutes.
How long you been in LA?
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
Like on and off. I'm originally from Orange County.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I moved up here in like 2013, did it for a little while, moved back, and then I moved back again. I started like doing UCB like on the weekends, and I was like, I can't just commute. I have to do this full time. So I moved back around 2019. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't think I got a chance to tell you. I might have like sent you a DM about it, but congrats on making Harold.
Oh, thank you.
I don't want to like make this like a super like complimentary thing, but like I will say of all the people that was like, oh, like who's gonna make it? I don't know, blah blah. You are always someone that I thought like, oh, for sure. If Anna doesn't make it, like forget the whole system's rigged,
Thank you. I
Because
appreciate that.
you've been killing it. At least from what I've seen, you've been killing it at such like a high level for so long.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you to say. And congrats on Lloyd.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
We're out here.
We're out here. We're doing the darn thing. Yeah. How has it been everything you thought it would be?
I mean, yeah, it's like only a couple weeks in, but yeah, I mean, it's been really fun, like getting really into the form, like the Harold form. I've been doing like a ton of organic improv, so it's like it's nice to kind of like be doing something a little different. And yeah, like my team, I don't know, we're still like on figuring out our vibe and stuff, but it's good.
So you mean you've been doing a lot of organic like outside and then now you're switching into premise?
Yeah, like I mean, I just mean like not with UCB. I've been doing a lot of organic improv. Like I think because of like I don't know. I feel like once the pandemic happened, it was like organic became like more popular. I don't know. I think without UCB being around, it was like, why would you be doing like living rooms and pulling premise? And so yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think the indie scene is like all like organic, all
Yeah.
montage. It's just like, how can you do anything else in 15 minutes?
Yeah. So I coach a team, Pop Sensation, follow them on Instagram. And they do documentary opening and then they do scenes off that and they do it in the indie, like in indie shows.
Mhm.
And they do it in like a 15-minute slot at, like a clubhouse show. And it like fucking crushes. I actually like I think that there's like more space for premise in indie improv than we see. But I think that the go-to is like the living room opening.
Mhm.
And I think that one doesn't work as much in indie spaces.
No, I think documentary works really well. I like the documentary because it's high energy and it's quick. You could do 4 pairs in like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So that way it's like, oh, we got 4 great premises. That's enough to fill 15 minutes. Let's get out of there.
Yeah.
But living rooms, like especially if you have catch momentum, it's like, oh, it's like 3.5 minutes. You guys are still talking about.
What does your Lloyd team do?
We start off doing living room. I think everyone does because it's
Yeah.
like the most normal. We're switching into this thing called it's like the rant hotspot. It's kind of interesting. It's new where we all rant, but then it's like hotspot where we take over and we like amplify, we heighten whatever their original rant
the
is.
rant of the person on your team, like you take over their rant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, and like I think another rant's just like a documentary where you start off in a really high energy place, and you're gonna get point of view because it's all just like really like strong takes. So I
100%.
like that.
Yeah, my Harold team just started doing the documentary opening.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm so into it.
Yeah, and your team, a lot of big like performers, so I think that works out great.
Yeah, definitely. There's like actor types and stuff, so that's helpful for that. Yeah.
Pirates.
I have no idea what I would be.
Yeah, I think you might be a ninja because I think you do a lot of what the scene needs. I've seen you voice the reason very well. I've seen you, where it's like a really like grounded scene. And you're like, let's kick it up a notch.
I love that. Yeah. I hope so. That's what I'm trying to think about. Like the big picture of how the show is going and where the scene's at and what it needs. But I think probably in my heart I'm more robot. I don't know actually.
And I think it's different on different teams. Like I always tell,
Yeah, that's true.
I do, I do two prov with Russell, and then
Mhm.
like I was like, man, it's great. It's interesting having two robots on a team. And he's like, I'm not a robot. Wait, you think I'm a robot? I'm a pirate. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to. But when we play together, he's definitely a bit more like logical, a little bit more. And then same thing, like it depends on who I'm with, but like with him, because I trust him being like a really solid like player, I will take bigger swings and I will say wilder things. I know he'll like, you're gonna help me justify this.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like also like once you're doing two profits, like there's nothing to hide behind. Like you have to be able to do both. And like trust the person so completely that like if you're not like usually a pirate, I guess you would be if you're doing two prov, you only have one other person, like you should definitely be able to pirate it.
Yeah, unless you're like what was that that comedy duo from like the like vaudeville days? There was a movie with John C. Reilly and oh my gosh.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not gonna know it.
Okay, for sure.
I'm not like good at like I'm not like very like comedy intellectual, I feel.
Well, like me neither. It's just because it was a movie and I saw it, but that was the whole thing. Was like it was like a whatever, like a biopic about like these two like old vaudevillian. They might have even been fake. They may have been fictional, but the idea was that like John C. Reilly's always the unusual person, and this other guy was always the voice of reason, and they split up. But then it was like, hey, like vaudeville is not in its heyday anymore. It's really hard to sell tickets. Like they're doing pictures now and stuff like that. So it was like, let's do one last like tour so we can make like this one last cash grab, and how they kind of resent each other, but then like they start to like realize like, oh buddy, I missed setting the jokes up for you, and then like because no one else can sell it like you. And
so is the moral of the story like stay in your lane?
I don't know. I mean, I think honestly the moral of the story, because it was very like Spade and Farley. It was like John C. Reilly was like the big boisterous guy, and it's like I think he was like either eating or drinking himself to death.
Yeah.
So it was very like Black Swan, the wrestler, where it's like, let's go out, one big laugh. I'm gonna like give myself one more concussion, and this might be it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But anyways, speaking of like that and comedy duos and dynamics, I know you have that two prop show with Isabella.
Yeah.
And then you guys had like a really huge show a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, we had a show with Ben Rogers, Dominic Dirks, and John Gabris. That was it was really fun.
And unfortunately, I couldn't make it because Glass Clown had a show lit at the same time. But didn't I heard some people say that like those are some of your like idols, or some people that you really like?
Yeah, so like we're starting our show is like we've been doing a two prov show, but now we're like launching a new thing where it's like comedy idols night. So we ask people that like we've looked up to or thought were like really cool, fun improvisers to watch, and like kind of put our necks out and be vulnerable and be like, will you do our like clubhouse show for free? And that way that's just like our way of asking people that we think, I don't know, wouldn't usually maybe want to do that kind of show because it's a little like rough.
Sure. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Clubhouse is a indie black box theater where a lot of like people come up and they really cut their teeth. I think they really like build up. But I think if there's anybody who's like acting or has like a regular slot, it's usually something that they don't really want to do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like, yeah, it would be like going back to like, it's like doing stand up. Like you wouldn't want to go back to like open mics if you're obviously booking. I think sometimes the shows can feel like that a little bit, but we're trying to like amp it up and make it like, I don't know, like a thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people may have different relationships with it, but I still think that some of the best comedy, some of the best improv you'll see in Los Angeles will be at the Clubhouse.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's great that you're able to like.
We both run a show there, so we gotta be into it.
Yeah, that's
gotta
true.
believe it's good.
Yeah, we both run a show, so it's like, yeah, no, this is still the cutting edge.
Actually, yeah, this is the coolest place you could watch improv. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a really great idea to like get like bigger folks or just people like you mentioned that you looked up to.
Yeah. Because it's also like when you ask someone in that way, like where it's like we have like copy that we send that's like, hey, like, we really like you, we're like total nerds about improv, and like it would mean so much to like basically be able to open for you, like would you be down? And I think that that's like, I don't know, it's a like, it's truthful, but it's also like a nice way to be like asked to do a show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it brings sincerity because I think for everyone else who maybe like is like, oh, hey, I got a show. You want to come do it or not? It's like instead to be like, hey, like I know like this might be a little bit beneath you, but I look up to you so much, and it would mean a lot to me personally as a fan of yours to do this. Like, not everybody puts that much into it,
Yeah, exactly.
And I heard it was packed, right?
Yeah. It was. Yeah, we filled it out, which was nice.
Amazing. So did you do like 15? Gave them how long was their set?
Yeah, we did like 16, 17 and gave them like 35. Oh, wow. We were like, we wanted it to be like an hour flat, and then like a full set of theirs, and then we were like, whatever's left over we'll do. So yeah, I think we ended up going just under 20 minutes.
Awesome. How are you gonna top that for next month?
I don't know. I mean, see, because it's such a vulnerable thing. It's so like hard to like, because if people don't want to do it, it's heartbreaking. Exactly. So it's like there's people that I'm obsessed with, like Mary Holland and Lauren Lapkus, and like I have like honestly, like all of Wild Horses, and like there's just these like, and Betsy Sidara, like there's so many people that I would like fucking love to ask, but we're like, should we shoot our shot? It's like it's hard to decide when to do it. Yeah,
which I think goes to why not everybody does it, because if this was like the shortcut way to getting people to come to do your show, everyone would do it.
Yeah,
but I think for everybody it's like, no, it's like saying like, oh yeah, just tell everybody at school you have a crush on them, right? Like, no, that's hard.
Yeah. Well, we DM'd Paul Scheer, so we'll see if he ever opens it, and then maybe he'll listen to this podcast and then do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hey, Paul, I know you're a big fan of mine. I'm a big fan of yours. That's actually that would be my idol. Like,
really?
I would do Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas. And, maybe like whoever else they want, but just the two of them, to see them play together would be amazing.
Yeah. That was like, those are like two big names that we would like fucking kill for.
Yeah, obviously. If you get them, I'll cancel our show just to come to your show.
Yeah, we can use the downstairs space.
Oh yeah, that's even better idea. Well, good catching up, but let's go ahead and dive into our first topic, which is going to be Improvster Syndrome. So this is the opportunity for you to talk about your income. Your talk about your
Here's
income.
My income.
How much you make? I see that gold chain. Talk about your improv origin story, since we've been talking like a lot of people that inspire us. This is really great, but I want to hear about how you got into improv and then how that slowly like got you to where you are now.
Yeah, I like started I was not like I started improv, in my opinion, like later, I guess, because I never did any theater in high school or college.
Were you
And
funny though?
yeah, I was uh like I feel like I was like often introduced as like, this is Anna, she's our funny friend, you know what I mean? So like I knew I was funny, and I'm not being that funny on this podcast, so people might be confused, but
This is not a
that's
funny
okay.
podcast. I edit all the funny stuff out. This is a real serious interview.
Yeah, the last thing I want is for someone to laugh while I talk about improv.
Yeah.
It's the most serious thing there could possibly be. But no, I didn't do any like theater stuff. I hadn't done improv or any of that. But I started listening to, and this is like kind of corny, but I started listening to Improv for Humans, the Matt Besser's podcast. And I was just like fucking taken with it. I was like, this shit's cool.
How'd you get introduced to that?
I don't even know. I think I was
It's
just
like recommended on the podcast app?
Yeah, the algorithm like fucking found me. I think that I wish I like knew exactly, but I think it's something like there was like some guest on it who was like maybe like someone I knew. Maybe it was like you know, like someone for Broad City or something. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I listened to it and I was just like, oh my God, what the hell are these people doing? This is so cool. And then I came and when I visited LA, I went to an ASCAT show, and I was just like, I couldn't believe that this was like a thing.
So at the time you were already interested in comedy, or you were just...
I was like, I've always been like interested, like obsessed with like watching stand up and comedy shows, and like Parks and Rec was like my favorite show, and I was like in that, but I just didn't know what improv was, I guess. So I was like in it, but I wasn't like doing it, if that makes sense. I wasn't writing and I wasn't doing stand up or anything. I was just working a marketing job in San Francisco, and I was just listening to this podcast I really liked. And then I came down here and I went to a show and I was like, this is crazy. But I also have like I'm pretty anxious, like I'm a pretty anxious person. And so I was like half like, this is so crazy, and I was half like, how do I get out of this theater if there's a fire?
Oh,
So
wow.
I was like really torn.
Was this at Franklin?
Yeah.
Oh, real fire hazard, that theater.
Yeah. And I was like, because I'm like, I get really anxious in like theater, like small spaces. Like I think I'm like a little claustrophobic or something. But I remember being like so engrossed in the improv that was happening, that like that anxiety that would usually be like the main thing I was thinking about, like would fall back for like 3 or 4 minutes while I watched like Mary Holland or whoever just like fucking do this like genius ass hilarious shit. And then obviously the anxiety would seep back through because I'm broken. No, but because, you know, I'm just like anxious. And then I just like left being like, holy shit, the power that has is like amazing to me. And like I got like totally addicted to it.
Yeah. So you said that you got enamored by this show. What was the next step after that?
Then I just took like UCB classes. And
wait, so you were visiting from San Francisco, and then did you take your first class while you were on the trip, or did you decide to move?
No, I just kept like visiting and watching shows, and then I decided to move here because I think like I just realized that I wanted to write for like I wanted to be a TV writer. And so I was like, I'll move to LA to do that. Like I didn't move to LA for improv. But then when I was here, I was like going to these shows and I was like, this is amazing. And my childhood friend and I like were like, let's just take the 101. We'll do it together. It won't be bad because we'll have each other if it's like weird or whatever. And you know, we had like a lot of fun. Oscar Montoya was my coach, who's like amazing. And it was just like so cool. And then at the end of it, she was like, that was really cool. Like, you'd like, you know, done, you know? And I was like, I want to do that 1,000 bajillion more times, and just like fucking went off from
Do you remember
there.
your class, your grad show? Was it like
my 101 grad show?
Yeah. You had a good set?
I didn't have a good no, but it was, I remember we had brunch before. So I went in like 4 mimosas deep.
Hell yeah.
And so I was playing fast and loose. And I remember that I did a scene with my childhood friend, and it was a scene that was very similar to a scene we had done in class. And I still, to this day, it haunts me because it feels honestly like improv illegal.
You think you got away with murder
I
or a
don't think,
crime?
I'm just saying, like, nobody would ever know this, and I don't know why I'm saying it, because why would I say this? But it was a little like, I was like, this is sketch.
I think that's totally fair to like, feel bad about it. And I'm pretty sure there's people that have had similar experiences. So you're making everybody feel
We
good about
didn't
it.
mean to do it, but it was like, I was like, this is basically the same game we did in class.
Well, I think that's fine. There's all these like old reliables, and the people, obviously, if it's like a premise, it's like, oh, this is familiar. But when it's like a character, nobody ever calls it out. This character
Yeah.
is like, oh, hey, here's David's, grumpy man character again. It's the same
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
He's gonna be grumpy in this situation. But I don't think people mind. I think people love seeing that.
Yeah. I mean, also, it's like the 101 show. It's like,
Yeah.
who gives, like, we had
No
friends
stakes.
in the audience, and it's like, who gives a fuck?
So what was like the thing that made you want to do this a million times? Was it like the thrill? Like, did you get like what's it called? Like that adrenaline rush?
I think it was like, I think I just hadn't seen like it was a perfect mix between like theater and TV or something, where it was like I just like was like, I just haven't seen this before, where it's like, I guess, like pretty raw, but also like uh obviously there's a lot of skill involved, but you really see people's like natural like voices and like funniness in a way that, like, I think sometimes in stand up feels dulled because it's like it's so practiced. And then I think in TV it's dulled because there's so many other things going on. You have, cinematography and a director and a scene partner and, like all the production of it and the set design. And there's just like so much going on. And then I think in the improv, I was like, oh, you're really just chiseling down to like what makes this person funny. And so like someone with like Manzukis or whatever, it's like, yeah, I could just sit here and watch this guy go.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need anything else. And I think that just like I was in awe of that, and it was like, I want to find that for myself.
Great. So did you sign up for like 201 right away, or did you
Yeah.
wait a bit?
Yeah. I like blasted through all the classes.
Okay.
I took an
Cool.
intensive 201.
Wow. What was
Yeah.
that like? I haven't heard too many people take intensives.
Oh, really? It was
Well, I
cool.
mean, like I know that they existed and they were definitely a lot more popular back in the day. But like, was it tougher to, especially for 201? That's the game one,
I think it was good because it was like, yeah, you just pack it all in. But it was yeah, like twice a week for like whatever it was, 4 weeks or something.
And did you take to 201 or UCB game like a fish to water?
Is that good?
A fish to water? Yeah, like naturally. Fishes love water.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like got it. I didn't like get it. Like, I wasn't like,
Yeah.
but I was like, okay, I like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like growing up, I was pretty good at like math and chemistry and like those, like I could like learn science stuff. I wasn't into it, but I could learn it pretty quick. So I think it was like once they had a formula, I was like, all right, like I can work with that.
It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, like a lot of people that end up being not better, but like they can like convert or adapt to game better. I've noticed are like the left brain people, the math, science, the STEM people. Obviously,
Yeah.
everybody gets it eventually, but I just think that they take to it better than.
Yeah.
But that's great that you felt good because I know that that's usually where a lot of people like struggle, and that's kind of like take a break.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that was the big narrative around it, was like, yeah, 201 sucks. It's so heady. And I was like, well, I'm kind of having a good time here.
And like you mentioned, you also like watched. Did you watch? Did you? I know you said Parks and Rec, but did you say you also watched like any sketch?
No, I wasn't a huge sketch person. I mean, I watched like SNL and stuff,
Yeah.
but I wasn't. Oh, you know what? Actually, I think I actually did watch sketch now that I think about it, because I watched a lot of Sarah Silverman program,
Mm-hmm.
which wasn't sketch, but like had sketch elements, and I watched a lot of Inside Amy Schumer. Those were like
Yeah.
my yeah.
I love Inside Shimmer. And like,
Did you watch the new one?
I did. I think, well, the thing I like about sketch, I could talk about sketch like for a whole episode. I love sketch. That's what I want to do. And um, sketch has gone through so many changes since then. And like right now, I think like what they're doing on I Think You Should Leave is
Yeah.
gonna leave a big imprint. And I think that everyone's gonna want to do it that where it's you don't really spend too much time in the base reality. You just kind of hit it and you just like
Yeah.
fly to the sun.
That, I mean, I think You Should Leave made me fall in love with sketch again. Like I
Mhm.
feel like I got kind of sick of it at some point, and then when I was doing so much improv, I was like, I would go to sketch shows and I would be like, I just wish this was improv in a way. And yeah, since that show, I'm like, back into it.
Yeah. And that's why after your show, you're like, ew, I just did sketch accidentally.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got through the classes pretty well, which is great. So yeah, improv 401, you get that little certificate, you
Yeah.
graduate to advanced study. What's next for you?
Well, I think like once I was in 301, 401, I was taking a lot of We Improv classes.
You're doing those concurrently?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
How'd you hear about that?
I don't even know. I think I had a practice group where there was like one person who was taking those classes. And the thing that was like so cool about taking we classes while doing the UCB classes was like we is so you do so many shows.
Mhm.
And I was just like getting reps that like nobody, it didn't feel like was like happening in places at UCB at the time, which is makes sense. Like UCB, like I think they expect you to be doing, indie improv on the side if you want to be like getting those kind of performance reps in. And but I just like kind of fell in love with like the way Jake Jabor like started it and runs it, and like he's very like yeah, performance based, very like don't judge yourself, trust your instincts. And I think I like kind of needed that at that time to like feel confident to like go out there and do shows, knowing I wasn't going to be like successful like at it
Yeah.
like at the beginning or whatever, which also like who really knows how you define that, but like at least I was insecure walking onto stage, and I needed that like push, that confidence to do more. So once I finished like UCB, I just kind of did a lot of indie improv, and then the pandemic happened. So
Okay, so pandemic happened, boom. Did you do a lot of Zoom improv?
yeah, I did a fuck ton of Zoom improv.
And how do you feel that affected you?
um I liked it. Like I felt like I'd found my people in improv like right before the pandemic. So I was so like scared to lose that like community and stuff. So I was just happy to like have any way to still feel connected to
Mhm.
people. And I liked Zoom improv because I'm kind of a chatty like improviser. Like if it's a scene where it's like two people sitting down having a conversation, it's not like cool to say because it's like goes against every rule of improv, but like I'm kind of into that. Like I kind of like a talking heads like moment. So I was like Zoom was kind of nice for me because I was like, oh cool. Just chat and dig into the game audibly rather than like be super active.
Yeah, I think that's that writer's brain of yours, like getting activated because now you get a chance to just focus on writing the scene, not necessarily having to worry about everything else. I love Zoom improv too, and I always really resented everything you said. I agree with. I really resented anybody that was just like, oh, like I can't do it because it's so limiting. And I'm like, if you find this is limiting, like overpower it or like make the most of it. that'd be saying like, oh, hey, we're on a stage with no chairs. Is that limiting? No, just
Yeah,
do a
that's so
standing scene.
true. Yeah.
Um,
There's a black box theater limiting. Like, yes, that's actually the beauty of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also feel like a lot of people I feel like who are maybe more like veteran improvisers when it happened were like maybe already sick of improv or something, and like maybe already had their friends like that they had through improv, and they were good enough friends that, you know, like whether they were doing improv or not, it didn't matter. But like for me, I was still like building all that. So I was like, you know, I wasn't sick of improv. I was like happy to keep doing it, and I was happy to like keep up with the people that I like vibed with.
Yeah, one last thing I want to ask about on your journey. Uh, and so much of it, it's unfair because like I got a chance to like witness it in person. But obviously, I just want to say, yeah, like, you know, things reopened, you were doing improv and you're kind of just in the indie grind of booking and producing and doing all that stuff for a while. But to get to where you are here, there was a time all of a sudden where we had to like switch gears back into premise. And I kind of just want to hear about how was that jumping back from doing like 2 years of organic and then jumping back into premise?
It was like I don't know. I feel like it was easier than premise had been before because I had so many like reps under my belt of like identifying the unusual thing that like when I knew what it was before the scene started, it was just like so much easier. And I was just like, ah, premise is like half the work's done for you before you even start the scene. And then obviously there's like a new different work that's cut out like later because you know heightening is so like I don't know, it's just like a lot. I think premise heightening is harder than organic heightening. um so but I think at the start of the scenes, it felt like I was like, I'm very in tune with identifying and labeling unusual things because I've been doing it in organic scenes where it's like you really have to like really tell your scene partner what you're saying and why
Mhm.
it's unusual.
So this would have been, not counting Academy, your first actual audition.
Yeah.
Well, how did you approach that? Was there any hesitancy, some confidence? Was it like being on the tennis courts again?
I think I just like because UCB had been on like hiatus kind of. I mean, they were doing online classes and I took some of those online classes. But like it just didn't hold the like power in my life in a way that I think it did before for a lot of people. So I feel like I went into the auditions like fairly calm because I was like, I don't really know what this is right now. And I have indie teams that I love, and I have weekly shows, and I have a two prov show, and I'm like very happy with where my improv is at as far as like how much I get to perform. So I wasn't like, if I don't get this, I'm going to be really sad because I was like, that wouldn't be fair to like what I'm doing right now because I value what I'm doing right now just as much as this potential thing.
Yeah, that's great. Really healthy attitude. Really, really good advice. Really good to hear your journey and your perspective on things.
Oh, good.
Yeah, incredible. And thanks for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next segment now. This is gonna be our topic of the week. Anna, we had messaged before, and you mentioned that you want to talk about performances versus practices. And this is something I really want to dive into because somebody said something to me. I won't say who, I won't say when, I won't say where, but I will say what they said. They said you should practice. No, what did they say? Basically, they said you should do what you do in practice. You should play how you play and practice how you're going to play on stage. Because if you're practicing one thing and then you perform a different thing, it's going to throw us off. Do you agree with that statement?
Like it's gonna throw us off like the teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with that statement. I mean, I don't think you can control that much like how you play in on stage because like
Yeah.
you're in kind of like you're on a stage with lights on you and you're there's people watching you, and you may have like a friend or family in the audience, and like you just can't control it that much. But I do think it's quite shocking when you go out on stage and someone that you've been practicing with like throws you a fucking curveball, and you're like,
Yeah. I think you might be a good person to have perspective on this. So what had going? Well, the reason why that was brought up is because during practice, I tend to not initiate. I tend to receive. I think that depending on the team and depending on what we're working on, sometimes just like what, I want to be able to like lose, not necessarily lose control, but like I think when you receive, like when you initiate, you can at least control some things. You control who, what, or where, right?
Yeah.
In your initiation. But when you're receiving, you're like, I don't know if they're gonna give me all three, one of the three, two or three. I don't know if I have to fill in all the blanks, So that's why I like to receive. It keeps me on my toes. But when I perform, I like to initiate because it's like, I like to be on my toes and practice so I'm ready. But the reason why I do that is because when I come on stage, I want to feel ready to do the scenes I want to do and do the way I like to dictate them.
Interesting.
You think there's maybe some disparity there?
I mean, I think similarly, I do the opposite. In practice, I'll initiate more, and in shows, I'll receive more, because, like, for exactly the opposite reason, it's like I don't like having too much responsibility in shows to like dictate stuff. I'd rather like work with someone else's idea. But like, are you wondering? Are you like, what are you curious about with
I guess
it?
the thing I want to discuss, I guess, is like, even the topic, it's performances versus practice. Should there be differences? Is this really like, no, this is just one topic. The way you play is the way you play. This is a Venn diagram that's like a circle. Or is it like truly two separate circles,
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely Venn diagram. And I think also it's like the thing that you're really, in my mind, that I'm really building with my team when we're practicing is trust more than anything like technical. And so I think like if that's carried over, it doesn't matter kind of what you do on stage, because like you have each other's backs and like you figure it out as you go. Um, and I also do really like being surprised by teammates. So
Yeah.
like if I practiced with someone and then they fucking really threw me on stage, I think I'd be kind of delighted by that, because I'd be like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, to me, that's like the true spirit, like the essence of improv.
Yeah.
Is something that you did not plan for come up. It's kind of like when you and your friend did that grad show and they like did a scene before. Like, I don't really want to see, and that's me. And I know I shouldn't be like projecting the same idea to my teammates, but to me, it's like I don't want to see something familiar. Like I don't want to like know your bag of tricks, because then when I get on stage, the genuine like surprise and the joy and be able to play with it won't be there, because like, oh, you're gonna do that, then I'll do that. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely want it to seem as unrehearsed as possible, which is why I also like to break on stage, because it's like, that fucked you up, that fucked me up too, because it's really funny.
Yeah. I think that's interesting, like thinking about breaking on stage. Like, because I like to break on stage too, as like a way to signal almost to like the audience and to the team members. It's like, that's the thing that I think is funny.
Yeah.
I've been really wondering recently if like I should be like toning that back. Because it is a very like, but I break in practice too. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe it makes
That's
sense.
like another example, like,
Yeah.
because I know people are always like, they're looser in practice, always like not breaking. But then when you
Yeah.
get on to the stage, some people are just like stone faced. You're like,
Yeah.
you're not enjoying this? And they're like, no, it's a stage. Like, so I think that it's just so so let's start here. Let's start with this. I think you and I come from a very lucky background, having done but like for most people, the ratio of practices to performance is like low.
Yeah.
Most people are probably practicing well, for sure, like at least once a week, but like maybe they're practicing on two different teams, but they're only performing like once a month. So what do you think is like a good thing to focus on when you're practicing versus, I think let's start there then. Sorry, I'm like, well,
I mean, let's.
I think performance is obviously the only thing you owe to anybody is the audience a good show.
Yeah.
You're not trying to work on like whenever like the coaches are always like, hey, for this next show, just think about one thing. Just think about like remembering a premise, or just think about,
Yeah.
a
Doing
scene
a
painting.
callback or
And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, if I can, great. But like my main priority is to, like, entertain everybody in the audience,
Yeah. That's exactly how I feel as well. And like, I think like when you're practicing, you're just trying to get as many like just reps in so that when you do it, you inevitably won't do it the way that you practiced, but hopefully it's like a little bit less of like less issues than it would have been if you hadn't practiced, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. And it kind of brings up like sorry to always use sports metaphors. I can't think of any other fucking metaphors right now. But like if you are a tennis player, like they're just gonna continue to hit like the same thing, and you're just gonna practice your forehand. Now that guy might throw you a backhand, I could throw you off, but at least if it comes in the way that it's expected to, you will be able to like deliver that because you practice that same hit every single time. And the same thing goes with like I think when you're in practice, like you're going to practice receiving a million initiations. So as long as they don't, do a really wild out of left field initiation, you're like, oh, perfect. I know exactly how to return this serve,
I think the thing that like throws me off when the difference between practice and performance is like when in practice, it's all good, and then in performance, sometimes people get nervous, so they don't trust each other as much, and then I guess it's like kind of like throwing, like it feels like you can be thrown under the bus in a way that's like not, it's like we don't practice like that, like we don't throw each other under the bus, so like why would we do this in front of a bunch of people? But it's just nerves, I think.
Yeah, I think there is something about, we mentioned like you want to put on a good show for the audience, you want to have a good time. So like there's the idea of like sometimes you sell out your scene partner for a joke, and you kind of like like you got a little of this guy, like that'll ruin the scene. That'll make your scene partner like freeze up. Do, but it is gonna get a laugh every single time. Versus when you're in practice, like what are you gonna do? Make your coach laugh? You get a little of this guy. Oh no, get back to your scene. So there are some moves I didn't like, now to hear you say that. Yeah, like there are definitely moves that you will maybe attempt or risk on stage during a show that you wouldn't do during practice.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're like, they're not usually the risks like at least I want to be making. Like if I feel myself do that in a show, it's like I immediately fucking regret it, because I'm just like I was like, it's like cheap. It's like the easy, quick laugh. And, but it's just sometimes it's like unavoidable in a show, and it's just like, you're panicking.
And like, I'll admit, like, I've been guilty of that a lot. I did it a lot during the workshop days, because with those workshops, since you are not practicing very consistently, you just have the class. And like, even then, sometimes they don't show up for the class. So sometimes, because there's, like you mentioned, trust, like there's no trust between me and, or if anything, there's like 4 weeks worth of trust. That's the most amount of trust you could have with someone on a workshop team. And you're going to have that show. And then it does sometimes feel like, hey, this is a joke. I know we didn't practice this. I know we didn't talk about this, but I know this will make people laugh. Sometimes you'll exploit that, which I've been guilty of.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's like, it's natural. Like we're doing everything on the spot. So it's not going to be always like pretty and the best representation of like the kind of player you are. But the more you practice not doing that, the hopefully better you are at not doing it in the show.
Do you think that's you would prefer, like, especially with the team that you coach personally, like, do you take the performance as like your guide to how to do the next couple of practices, or do you think that what the results of the performances are they should be separate from like your plan during practice?
I don't know. I'm like very torn on that. And I think like since I'm like a newer coach and teacher, it's like I want to kind of let the team guide me on that, what they want, because I think some teams like identify with their performances a lot and some teams don't. Like some teams it's just like, you know, like it's not that important to like what they're doing in practice. So I like to like try and have like a discussion about it and see where they kind of like how much do they value, like how much is their like success based on shows and how much of it is based on like almost like not even practices but like team dynamics or like
Hmm.
collaboration or like their overall experience as like an improv team. And I think a lot of the times focusing on that collaboration and like where they're at as like a team over performances helps performances more anyway. So it's not, it's like it's probably it might be like maybe slightly healthier, but if it is like performance based, it's like I kind of just want to work with that.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's tough. I think I'm maybe your coach is doing this, but for our Lloyd team, that seems like what it's a lot of it's like. It's like based on how that show went, that's kind of dictate what we talk about in the next practice. And then, based on the notes, we're gonna do it back. And it kind of makes sense because it's so rapid, it's so like consistent. But I think, like you mentioned, unless it's like that specific situation, I think it is better to like, hey, we're never gonna get your performances to look like your practice. So let me just get the practices as like perfect or like as clean as possible, and then hopefully someday your performances will look like your practices.
Yeah, I think also, especially with like a new team, it's hard to be like, yeah, I'm just like, we need to build like whatever we are with each other before I feel like we can judge what we do
Hmm.
in a performance, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I guess like, yeah, I guess I do kind of think of them as sort of separate things. Um, in that sense of like, yeah, I don't think your performances like define
Yeah.
you as a team.
Now, as a coach, do you see a lot of your team's performances?
Yeah. So yeah, the teams that I coach that do we improv, I see their performances and then um I don't like coach an insane amount of teams. So other teams it's like I'll try and go if it's possible. Sometimes I'm in the show too. So it's
Yeah. Okay, so like without like naming anything specific though, like have you seen a difference in the way that they play
what do you like
at the performance versus like when you're in their living room?
um I mean, of course, like, yeah, I think, you know, nobody is doing a show this exact way that they do it in practice, but um yeah, I don't have like
You think practice sets are more fun or more entertaining, or what do you think? More
um
laid back?
yeah, I probably prefer like like if I could be a fly on the wall in practice sets, uh like for any team, I think that'd probably be more fun to watch than on stage. Like, can you imagine being a fly on the wall and like when I'm sure they don't practice now, but like Facebook doing their like practice sets in their living room, like hell yeah, that's gonna be more interesting because they're gonna say some shit that's like, you know,
Yeah.
foot in the mouth kind of stuff.
I was just gonna say that. Like, I'd never, I guess I never had the notion, but you're probably right. Like, it would be crazy to see like some of my favorite teams, what it would be like to like sit on their practice, and because like if I love them on the night of the show, their practices might be even like better or more entertaining.
Yeah, yeah. Would you have assumed that the shows would have been more entertaining?
I think it really depends. I guess to be honest, I've never considered what teams are like when they practice. I just only know what my team's like when I practice, but
Do you
I
think your team's more fun in practice or in a show?
I think we're more fun in practice.
Yeah.
And that's just speaking because of I know them. I wouldn't necessarily say that would apply to every improviser, but to hear you and talk about your experience, I'm like, yeah, I guess that is true. Like there is definitely a lot less at stake. We are taking bigger swings. And then yeah, when night of the show, there's definitely nervous energy. It's definitely people like, oh, I gotta, you know, step out more often than I normally would in practice, or I gotta initiate more, or
Yeah.
whatever, you know?
Yeah. Or it's like also it's like sometimes it's like in practice, like people will kind of showboat in a way that's like fun. And it's like, yeah, like fucking go for it.
Right.
And like obviously you don't want them to do that in the show because like that kind of sucks. Like it's your time too. And you've invited people and like you kind of need to share the
Yeah.
space more. But like those showboaty like moments are like some of the funniest moments.
Well, and even the inverse, some of the more shy people only feel comfortable doing that in practice. Where
Yeah.
you're like, I love it whenever you come out and you do your big character, but then on the night of the show, those like a room full of people, they get nervous, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're not gonna come on, do your thing? No,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So yeah, you're right. So it's completely different, but I think maybe it's just also because we see our practice sets more,
Mm-hmm.
we prefer them, right? Because we only get so many performances. So like, oh man, when it's just all of us and and David's living room, it's so fun. I love this energy. I wish we could bring this energy on stage. Then
Yeah. Is this where you guys practice?
we practice here. We practice at Onza's,
Oh, nice. This would be a good place to do improv.
which is another thing. I think let's talk about practice locations. Like uh, uh, I'm guessing most of your. Have you ever like rented a space, or do you always practice in someone's living room?
Practice in living rooms, and then I have one team that practice at Barnsdale Park.
Outside?
Yeah,
I think I used to park as Barnesdale Park. Remind me where that is. That's
it's
the
like
one.
right behind the clubhouse on Vermont, and
Yes, I used to practice there too on the top of the hill.
yeah, which is kind of crazy. Like, it's so like it's so nice to like be outside for 2 hours.
And in the
Um,
shade.
yeah, but I think I would have a hard time being comfortable doing like big characters and stuff in a park because
Yeah.
it'd be like people were watching. I mean, how did you feel doing it?
Well, I mean, there would be straight up like people walking their dogs or walking a stroller right through our scenes.
Yeah.
But it's a different element. Like uh uh the thing that I think is just so tough about improv is you have to pretend so much and we don't realize we're doing it. But like we're either in a black box theater or in a living room or in a park where it's just like, yeah, we're on a date, we're in a restaurant, we're in a, we're on a rocket ship, we're on a pirate
Yeah.
ship. And it's like, no, we're not, we're in a living room. So like to have to do all that work can be really tough. And being outside, I think it forces me to focus more because there's mosquitoes, there's kids playing, there's the sun, there's cars driving by, but I have to be like, no, we are. In a laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I liked it. But I not in retrospect, I realized that for some of the folks, that might have been like a sensory
Yeah.
overstimulating.
I think that would be hard for me. I'm a very like I'm like looking around and
Mhm.
yeah, I think a little sensory like overwhelmed. I think it would be hard for me. But I feel that way in like I think it'd be easier to practice at like a park than in a building with like fluorescent lights or something. Like
Mhm.
I think I think it's like those kind of stale environments sometimes are also like kind of painful to be in for 2 hours and not feel like a crazy person.
Yeah, I used to hate those old classrooms
Yeah.
for that reason. I think it's just spending so much of our lives in like fluorescent light classrooms. It brought me back to that where like you get like sleepy or you get like bored easily because your brain associates
Yeah.
like white walls and fluorescent lights with like boring spaces.
Yeah, I think also it's just like no window. You don't have like a sense of time. It's just like what is happening?
Hmm.
And then you like zoom out a little too far and you're like, wow, I'm an adult like playing make believe in a room that I paid to like do like it's just like you don't want to think about it too much because you start to be like, what the fuck is this?
You have a little existential
Yeah,
crisis.
exactly.
Yeah. So I like living rooms because I think just going like the biggest thing about practices I think is just like that trust and being in someone's home and like just hanging out having snacks and once practice is over you're still hanging out there like there is that's probably why I like practices so much because it's like a hang and
Yeah.
instead of playing board games we're playing improv.
I totally agree. And I think, I definitely think like the living room of it all like brings people closer. And that's like that's my MO in practice. Yeah.
So that has been our topic of the week. We're gonna go and wrap it up one last segment. This is gonna be our
hot improv takes.
Are you familiar with this segment?
I saw it in the email.
Okay, great. Well, this is pretty much just a rant on an improv trend that we're seeing, something we want to see more of, see less of, or we like and we want it to stay exactly the same. And we just do it rant style. We always start off with like, I love or I hate, and we talk about something in improv. Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, you go first. I'd love to see.
Hot improv take. Don't make your own sound effects. Sound effects are great. I love sound effects. It really adds texture to the scene, but let your scene partners or let your team in the back line do it. It's so much cleaner if people in the back line do it. And if you're in the back line and you see someone doing sound effects for themselves, like that's your cue, pick it up. Same thing goes to like scene painting. Do not do your own scene painting, where you're like, you walk into a scene. We see that I'm wearing a suit. Let other people do that for you. It's much cleaner. Once you're in the scene, you're in the scene. Let the ninjas in the back line take care of it. And just trust yourself. Trust yourself. If you walk in, people know that you're dressed in a nice suit by the way you carry yourself. Trust yourself that if you do the space work to open a door or to pour coffee, you don't have to be like, people know that the cup is being filled with coffee. Trust yourself and trust your scene partners. That's my hot improv take.
Woo-hoo!
What do you think about that?
I fucking love that take. Because also it's like if someone's making a sound effect, it just gets called out as like, why are you making that sound effect with your mouth?
Which gets a laugh.
Which gets a laugh, and I think it should, because it's like you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
I'm super into, yeah.
But that is also that thing where like when they call it out, and I don't blame anybody for calling it out. Like you kind of almost have to, because it's such a absurd thing. But then it kind of does like break apart the scene where it's like, now we don't trust each other. Now we don't know what's real. And now, you're supposed to be you're supposed to be, Bill Gates, but now because you did your own sound effects and I just made fun of you, now that's the game. The game is Bill Gates makes his own sound effects.
Yeah.
So that's
100%. And we've seen those scenes.
And I love them, but
yeah.
Oh, and you know what? I guess it's fine in a montage because you just edit it.
Yeah.
But man, in the Harold, that'd be tough.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think that the reason, like, when I'm on the back line, like, I like what you were saying. It's like the back line should be doing it because, like, and I need to remember that because when I'm on the back line, I am not like, what sound effect do they need? But if I was thinking that more, I think I would be more likely to like also expect the back line to do that. You know what I mean?
Time for your hot improv take.
Oh, okay. My hot improv take is I love transaction scenes. I think it is so, you're not supposed to do them. They're like the worst thing ever, but some of the most like awkward and bizarre and strange interactions I've had with people is during a transaction. And as someone who like, I've worked at a pet store before, and like I have had so many long conversations that I'm like, this is a fucking game, but it wouldn't be allowed to be a game by so many coaches and teachers standards because you're not allowed to do improvs. You're not allowed to do transaction scenes. But I think that they should be fine because you really do extend, like you do have to keep talking a lot longer than you'd think. And I think that a lot of people think like you can't do a transaction scene because it's going to end really quickly, but usually they last like 2 minutes in real life anyway. So why can't they be in an improv scene? And also I think that it's a great way to show an unusual behavior and then just tag away from it. And I just don't think people should be scared of transaction scenes.
I agree with you as well. I wonder why that's always such a hard rule, because some of the best sketches are transaction scenes,
Yeah.
And I think it's the stuff that maybe people don't know how to deal with, like their status. There is like wanting to be there, right? It's like, hey, I want this parrot poop. We don't sell parrot poop. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, how do you continue to keep this going?
I think it's like also the thing, like I have been in a lot of bad transaction scenes. Like, don't get me wrong, they can go horribly, but so can every scene. I've been in a lot of bad date scenes, and I've been in a lot, like, do you know what I mean? And I think like someone was saying the other day, I did a transaction scene with Katie O'Hearn, and we were talking about it after, and she was like talking about like, oh, well, I thought maybe we would be, I would be a regular customer. And then I was like, fuck, that's so smart. Like that could be, that's like the best way to make a transaction scene, like an easy scene to like have like stakes to it, is like what it can be a transaction scene where you actually still know each other. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by a regular customer?
Like,
Oh, like you're a regular, like you're I
yeah,
keep coming over. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like at a coffee shop or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
well, you could be a regular there, and then it like solves the problem of like,
yeah,
you know, because so many times it's like transaction scenes are just strangers where you say like, you know, stop, that's inappropriate, and then like you kind of have to stop
yeah.
because, you know.
I think it's like because I agree with that. I think that's always like a good thing for people that uh, um, are new to it. But like I used to work retail, and you said you used to work at a pet shop, so like we're comfortable, like we know how to navigate that. So like they always say like it's tough because there's a power dynamic, and now you can't call it out. I'm like, I know how to call it out in a professional way, or
Yeah.
I know how to like do this in a professional way. So I think it's like if you know that world, if you know the world of transactions, you know, you know how to navigate it. But if there's some people that
Yeah.
have never worked at the store before, I think that's what's tough, because you put them in a like, hey, you're a bartender, but then they're rude to you, or they are like, you know,
Yeah.
oblivious. Like, oh, that is tough.
Yeah, but then again, it's like every scene that there's at a restaurant, the waiter comes in, and there's inevitably a like game move with the waiter. Do
Mhm.
you know what I mean? It's like, why can't that be true in other transaction scenes?
True. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
why can't I be at the grocery store and check out and have it be a game move? It just feels like it's very like, don't do this.
Yeah, I agree. I like it. I think that more people should try it. Maybe that's a thing. People like, because it's been a rule for so long,
Mm-hmm.
even like from you know 101. If we didn't give people that rule, people would do it more, and if they do it more, they'll get better at
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
I love a good transaction scene.
I do too. And yeah, I totally agree. Like when working in like retail and stuff, it's like you can call people out on unusual behavior.
Yeah.
Like you just do it in a, yeah,
Oh,
masked way.
you wanted to get parrot poop?
Yeah.
Okay. Can't say I've seen a customer, you know, do that
Yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah.
Let me go see if we have it in the back, you know,
Exactly.
or whatever.
Or like, yeah, like, yeah, it's even like kind of passive aggressive a little bit. Like, you seem like you're having a tough day. Like, why are you freaking out at me? I'm just
Yeah,
working.
yeah. I think that's great. I think that's something that's you do very well. Like just like I think like you mentioned, like you want to just be yourself on stage. You want to show your essence, you know, and
Yeah.
that's something that, you know, if you can do in a transaction is the best thing to do. You know, that's exactly how you would let other people know that like, hey, this is messed up,
Yeah.
and that brings the audience in. That's something that would make me put my phone down. That's something like, oh, this is real. This is a real moment. This is someone being present, so I
Yeah.
need to be present for it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
All right, great. Well, great improv take. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So last part, all we have to do is have you plug away any of your shows or your socials or anything like that.
Cool. Yeah, you can follow me at Anna Bezahler on Instagram, and I always post about shows. And I have a two-prov show every second and fourth Wednesday at the Clubhouse at 8 p.m. And Shag is playing for the next 3 months at the at UCB. And just follow Shag's Instagram account to find out when those are.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much for stopping by and coming to do long form conversations, chatting about practices and performances.
Cool. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
Bye, everybody.